2 years ago I played Red Dead Redemption 2, and if you've seen anything from my channel, you probably know that I loved it. I won't go into it too much now, but I was blown away by the amount of love put into the setting, story, and characters, and it's in my top 10 games of all time. So when I went to play GTA for the first time a couple months ago, my expectations were really high. Not only because of how great Red Dead 2 was, but also because it's one of the most popular games of all time, up there with Minecraft. I've heard people praise this game to infinity, and I was so excited to jump in. But once I beat it, I was left a little disappointed. And a large amount of that disappointment does rest on just how amazing their next title would be. Now I think it's great that a studio is improving so much from game to game, but that doesn't stop my feelings for GTA. First, I want to talk about the story. I was going into this expecting a long, interesting crime story that takes its time fleshing out characters and giving them satisfying arcs, very much like Red Dead. And at the start, it did seem entertaining. You have goofy missions that set you in this world and meet funny characters, but the momentum at the start never really carries on. And that's because the best parts of the story are the funny shit that happens while doing missions. And these moments come from my favorite characters, Lamar, Trevor, and Jimmy. The parts I remember most about the story is when Lamar is pissed that he didn't get Employee of the Month, when Jimmy says the N-word, or when Trevor gives Franklin's aunt $7 and calls her an ungrateful cow. I love it when she says $7.
Is this $7?
This is $7. Those moments crack me up. But this game is 30 hours long, and the best moments are the funny parts. Not only do these moments happen few and far between, but the best part about GTA should not be the jokes. I should remember more than that. At the start, there's an interesting dynamic between Franklin and Michael. Michael showing Franklin the ropes of crime and getting him involved in more dangerous stunts, and you really like the bond. But then once Trevor shows up, you barely get any of Franklin. He's an interesting character, I want to know more about him. He's wrapped up in Michael and Trevor's drama, but you never really see shit from his perspective or what else is going on in his life. Near the end you get some hints about problems in his life, but then they're kind of solved on their own. This is similar to Michael. The big conflict in his life is his reckless acts pushing away his family. At the start, him and his family seem like the heart of the story, and they should have been, but after a bit they go away for 15 hours. Then Michael goes and beats his wife's yoga instructor up, and then the family's back together again. Michael never earned it, and the story itself goes on in so many different tangents. Michael is doing yoga, now he's Quentin Tarantino's assistant, now we're killing some tech guy, then we're stealing some shit, and now we're working for the knockoff FBI. I'll be honest, and I don't know if this makes me sound stupid, but I had no idea what the entire FBI storyline was about. And I think we're working for another guy too, repoing cars. This is a problem because you do a lot of missions for these storylines. Every single one of them, I had no idea why we were helping them or what we were doing it for. All I know is they said corrupt a lot. I played this game with a friend and he had no idea what was going on either, so it's not just me. Most of these missions themselves aren't a blast either. So many of the missions are just you driving around with another dude in the passenger seat, or driving a forklift, or stealing the 100th car for another heist where you lose all the money. And even the ones where you do pull off something cool like the train or skyscraper missions, it always ends in a 20-minute repetitive shootout where you're gunning people down room after room. This goes on for like 70 missions. It's such a long game for a team of devs who didn't really have a story to tell other than just having a crime compilation. The problem with all these missions is that they're not serving the story or the characters. Mostly every mission you don't end up getting any money, which would be okay if the characters change at all, but they don't. Nobody really does. Everyone's just an evil sack of shit, and then they keep being evil until the game is over. There were so many times when I expected people to start growing, but they never did. There were big things that happened to them, but they never really changed as people. And this is really where the contrast of GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2 is shown, because that's the game's strongest suit. A lot of the missions in Red Dead are a lot like the ones in GTA. You're driving around some town or you're in some shootout, you're doing some little heist, but the difference is that not only is there an overarching goal of getting money for the gang so that every mission seems important, but no matter what happens you'll get a bit of character growth. Arthur Morgan is a much stronger character than any of the GTA 5 characters, and as the game progresses, things inside of him shift. The state of the world is changing, causing Dutch and Arthur to change, which then forced the supporting characters to change as well, so that with each mission you are getting further and further away from who they were. Not only this, but there are also stakes in Red Dead. People die, they change for the worse, shit happens. Whenever something happens to characters of the gang, you know that rather than laughing it off and never mentioning it again, they'll adapt realistically to the event. The characters are three-dimensional and act like people, not just props for a funny bit. In GTA, at the end you're forced to choose your ending. You either choose to kill Trevor, kill Michael, or kill neither, which they say will be harder. Not only do you literally choose your ending on a multiple choice text on your phone, but you also know it'd be stupid to not pick the neither option just because a guy says it'll be harder. There is no risk to the third option. You know that picking that option won't risk you all getting killed or something bad happening because nobody of note has died the whole game. Not a single person on your side has ever died. In Red Dead, tons of people die. So even though there's not as much of a choice when it comes to those things in that game, you know very well that it could still happen. Whenever characters are in perilous situations, you never write off the chance that someone could get killed, not even the playable characters. This means that throughout the entire runtime of GTA 5, you're never really nervous about what could happen because you know that no matter what, it'll always end in a happy ending. And it does. And don't get me wrong, I love happy endings, but you have to earn that shit. Really, the whole narrative of GTA is so much weaker than Red Dead's. There's no overarching message or theme. The goal of pretty much every mission is to get money, but other than the one side plot with the gangster, there's no actual reason you need the money. Michael is already rich, and Franklin and Trevor aren't in the best spot, but they're fine doing what they were doing. In Red Dead, the gang needs money to escape America because as the world changes, the government is closing in on them and they need to get out of there before they're arrested or slaughtered. In GTA, you get money because you want a cool car and a house. Which, sure, is fine motivation, but the whole situation isn't as dire or interesting because of it. It's a real shame. But the other big factor that separates Red Dead from GTA is the world it takes place in. A lot of open world games take place in other time periods and worlds because there's something we'll never be able to explore ourselves. GTA takes place in fucking LA. That place already exists. I've lived there for a bit. I've done some things the characters have done, like this part. This part? I've done this plenty of times. If you're not going to deliver on the story, the next main draw can't be to be able to explore a city that you can just go to in real life. And sure, it is fun to be able to do stuff you can't do in real life, like shoot people in the street and fly a helicopter over the city, but it gets old after doing it a couple times. Red Dead Redemption 2 takes place in a world we'll never be able to go to, and it's one I'm particularly biased towards because I love the Wild West setting, so anything I do is going to be cool. Riding a carriage through the open plains, playing some poker, getting into a shootout, they're pretty much the same things that happen in GTA, but it's more fun because you're doing it in the Wild West. And I know it's kind of an unfair comparison because that's just what GTA is, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be noted that the setting isn't as cool as others. GTA 5 doesn't have the story I hoped it would have, but a redeeming quality is the online. The city provides a perfect sandbox for you and your friends to come together and goof around and have fun, pulling off heists, but I play Rockstar games for the single player, and going from Red Dead 2 to GTA 5 was a bit disappointing. On the bright side, it just makes me that much more excited knowing how much of an improvement they make from title to title. I'm really anticipating Rockstar to use their skill of character and story development into GTA 6, and hopefully make it a game to remember. As long as they don't have a yoga mission. Or any plane missions. Those are so hard to control on land, and whenever you messed up it'd send you all the way back to the start and you'd have to redo 10 minutes of monotonous flying. Either way, GTA 5 gets a B.